Hey team! Thank you for joining me on Accepting the Call to Change podcast, where we discover opportunities to invite growth and change into our lives. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Accepting the Call to Change. You guys, I'm so excited for this episode. We have my good friend Cassie with us here today, and she is amazing. She pretty much watched me grow up. She lives like 4 houses away from me. She's pretty cool, and she knows what she's talking about. So Cassie, why don't you give us a little introduction of yourself, kind of who you are, what makes you you?
Well, thanks, Hannah. All right, I'm Cassie, and what do I love? I love the color orange. I love sunshine. I love baking bread. I love crocheting. I like relaxing, and I am the mom to 3 beautiful teenage girls. I've got an almost 15-year-old and 2 almost 13-year-olds who keep me very busy, and they're fun. I'm married to the best guy out there, and we have a house full of animals too that just is a circus at my house. But I'm super happy to be here, and I love Hannah, and I love her family, and I'm so happy and excited to be here with you guys.
That's so fun. That's crazy that your daughters are like teenagers.
There are 3 teenage girls.
That blows my mind. I remember when they were born.
Babies. Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's crazy. That's so fun. And you guys, Cassie makes the best bread on planet Earth. I love Christmas time because she always brings us her bread. And it's so tasty.
It's my therapy, bread baking.
So fun. Okay, so today we are going to be diving deep into neural pathways. And like I said before, Cassie knows what she's talking about. She knows a lot more about neural pathways than I do. So Cassie, why don't you give us a little background on kind of just the gist of what you know about neural pathways, why you know what you know about them, and kind of what you do for work.
Sure. So almost 18 years ago, I graduated with my master's in social work. And so basically, a licensed clinical social worker is also a therapist. And I've spent the last 18 years really in the public service arena and in large part working with kids that come from hard places. So lots of trauma that kind of just carries with them from every age. And so my main goal has been to preserve families. I believe in the power of families. I believe the power of communities. I believe in healing, and I believe in bringing people together with those who will support them. So that is how I know a little bit about neural pathways. I'm by far not an expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a neuroscientist or anything like that. But I do. I feel like I know kids, and I know families, and I know how life affects us all. Even if we don't have a huge trauma, our everyday experiences affect our brain and how we live. So I can share what I do know. I'm happy to.
That sounds amazing. Over the past year, I feel like I've learned lots about neural pathways, but I also just am so excited to learn more with you as we discuss this.
We can talk about it together.
Okay, perfect. So what exactly are neural pathways?
Really, the simplest way to explain it are neural pathways are just signals that go from one part of the body to the other. So our brain creates these little passages or these pathways that give communication from our brain to different parts of the body. That's the very simplest form, is they're just brain highways. I guess that's a way you could say it, is a brain highway. And brain highways, or these neural pathways, they actually start forming before we're even born. We can experience things in utero that will carry with us. So if you look at research, for example, this is kind of an extreme example, but babies whose moms are exposed to violence before they're born have created these neural pathways, these wirings of brain to respond to that when they're born, even though they're not even here on Earth yet. So we know that neural pathways begin forming. They're one of the earliest things that forms before a baby is born. One of the last things that is formed when a baby is born. So that during the whole in utero experience, our brain is just shooting off signals and forming these pathways and these highways. So they're huge, right? And so we're born with some before we even recognize it, before we even conscious of it.
That's crazy.
It's crazy,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So we're in the womb and we're creating these neural pathways, do they affect us like even into our adulthood from the womb?
They can, for sure.
That's wild.
So, like I said, some kids, not kids, some women who are pregnant and carrying babies, if they're exposed to things like domestic violence or extreme neglect or things like that, it absolutely has an effect when that baby's born, because that baby's going to be wired to maybe be more reactive to stressful situations or violence or things like that. It will carry with us. So it doesn't mean that this is kind of just our life set in stone.
Right.
But it does mean that it influences us before we're even here.
Right. That's crazy. That's
it's
so
kind of
cool.
wild, right?
Yeah. I did not know that.
So here's some simple maybe examples. So hunger, our brain has created a pathway for hunger so that when we experience hunger pains, our brain is communicating with our body like, get up and go get food, like we're hungry. Our brain has created pathways like to be responsive to pain. So if we experience pain, our body's going to remember that experience and going to try to avoid it in the future. So our body also has created a pathway for experiences that give us pleasure or like this rewarding behavior. And so when we experience that, our brains get this shot of dopamine, which communicates to the rest of our body, hey, this was good. We're going to seek out behaviors that keep giving us that because it feels good.
Right.
So all of those things are just neural pathways that are created by the experiences we have in life.
Okay. That's very cool. And is that like kind of how they're formed, I guess?
Yeah, so they're formed by repeated actions, like repeated behaviors, repeated thoughts, repeated experiences. So every experience we have in life will contribute to the neural pathways we have, but ones that are repeated that get kind of entrenched in our life and our experiences are the ones that are going to really stick and have the strongest highway, the strongest passage.
Right. Okay. So for example, with my eating disorder, when I just like wouldn't eat, my body wouldn't get those hunger cues. Yeah. So then it would just like, because I wouldn't eat, then it created that neural pathway where it just like
yeah. Okay. So that's interesting because some of those neural pathways are our brain's way of just communicating survival, right? And so when we're born as an infant, our newborn infants don't have to think consciously, I'm hungry, it's time to eat. Those pathways are created, they're hardwired. What messes it up are things that we choose to do on repeat. So maybe somebody chooses not to eat and they kind of rewire that. When I feel this sensation or this urge to eat and I choose not to, what you're doing is you're sending that pathway of hunger down. You're creating a different road for it.
Okay.
Same thing if I if I overeat. If my response to stress is I'm just going to turn to food instead of like maybe a more healthy way to manage the stress response, what I'm doing is I'm creating a new pathway that whenever I feel stress response, the signal is going to be you should eat, right? And that even creates a sense of relief for a short minute. And so then it just kind of entrenches the behavior even more, if that makes sense. Right. So it kind of messes up. Some of those behaviors might mess up some of the hardwired behaviors that we need for survival.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's really hard. It's tricky.
Oh, that's
it gets
so
really
crazy.
Tricky. So, we're constantly creating these neural pathways through every experience. And we're not only just creating them, that we can rewire them. So for example, if I've created this deep trench or this deep highway of like, I'm choosing food as a stress response, thankfully, I can actually rewire my brain. We're not stuck where we are forever. There's always opportunity to grow and learn, and it's not easy, but there's ways to do it.
Right. So you can like create a different path for your neural pathway, but then like you can create a different one after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're doing it at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. By changing it, you're entrenching a new pathway. You don't
Okay.
have to just stop that and have nothing. You're always going to be carving something.
Okay.
I don't know if
That's
if
cool.
I'm using the right words, but
Yeah. No, that
right.
makes sense. Oh, that's crazy.
It is crazy.
So why is it like so important for us to understand these?
Brain health is just as important as physical health, is just as important as mental health, as your spiritual health, because all of it's connected. Our brain is a tricky thing because it's so powerful, but it doesn't mean that everything it creates as far as our thoughts go is true, right? We're so influenced by everything around us that our brain sometimes gets tricked into believing things that aren't true. And when that happens, we're creating pathways that may not be as healthy. So, brain health is a huge thing. It's really important. And it explains kind of why we do the things that we do. It explains some of the behaviors that we have. It explains some of the thoughts that we kind of repeat, some of those stuck thoughts that just get kind of on a skipped CD cycle in your head. And those affect how we feel. And all those things, our thoughts, our actions, our feelings, they affect everything we do all day long. So, yeah, understanding brain and brain health is huge. It's great big.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that makes sense because, like, I mean, with your physical health, like you said, you have to, like, take care of your body in order to feel good.
Yeah.
And so you got to take care of your brain in order to feel good.
Right.
So.
And those things have a real influence on our spiritual health. I believe, I mean, our body is our greatest gift.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we understand all of the ways that it works and we're always trying to heal and to reach the spirit, that's our ultimate goal on earth anyway, is how do we become closer to God? So brains are part of it.
Yeah, that's crazy because, like, he created our brains.
Right.
And it's so hard to understand them, I feel like, but
it is hard. And we don't have to be um we don't have to be experts. We don't have to be, not everybody has to go study neural pathways and neuroplasticity and understand all of those things.
Right.
We just have to recognize what are our thoughts? Are they leading us to do good? Are they leading us to do enticing, righteous things? Or can we recognize that some of our thoughts and behaviors aren't from the spirit? They're from just the experiences that carve us on life.
Yeah. That's so cool. Crazy. So from what like we've talked about, I'm assuming there's healthy and unhealthy neural pathways.
For sure. So healthy pathways would be like if you put your hand on the stove and it's hot, you're not going to do that again, right?
Right.
Like that is a pathway that we want to keep and we want to keep strong. Same thing with like hunger pathways that we talked about. Like if we want to be able to respond to hunger when we see it, those hardwired ones. The more a pathway is used, the deeper it is, like we said. So if I looked in the mirror every single day from the time I was really tiny, clear through my life, and every single day I said, Cassie, you are beautiful, you're incredible, you're going to do great things, and you're amazing. And I repeated that to myself every day. I'm creating a highway from my brain to my actions, to my thoughts, to my feelings, that I'm worthy, that I matter, that I'm valued, all of those things. That's creating a really healthy pathway, right? If I look in the mirror every day and I say completely the opposite, how do you think that highway is going to look different? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I feel like I've heard this a lot, but like the things you put out into the universe is like what you're going to get. So if you're telling yourself that like you're, I don't know, a terrible person or you're ugly or I don't know, just different things like that, then what you are saying and putting out into the universe is going to become true. Like that's what you're going to reflect to other people.
Right. So it's kind of funny. When I was young, this is kind of a vulnerable thing. When I was young, I have a little sister. She's 4 years younger than I am. She's one of my very best friends, and she's incredible. And I remember once when I was maybe, I don't know, young teenager, 12 or something, and she's 4 years younger. And my dad was talking to somebody, and he referred to us. He put his hand on my head and said, "She's a smart one. This one's beautiful." And I don't know if that's actually how he said it, or if in my young mind it was my interpretation of it. I know my dad. I know he didn't think I wasn't beautiful, but I won't forget that and the feeling like, oh, I have to be smart, but I'm never going to be pretty. You know what I mean? Like the way that my mind and my experiences interpreted that situation actually created this sort of highway that for a long time, and even still now, I struggle with, like, um I must not be pretty. Like, I need to put all my efforts into being productive, being smart, doing all that, the education and all that stuff, because in my mind, that was one experience of probably many that made me question my beauty. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so that was actually that's a really unhealthy system for me to sit and feed, if that makes sense. So
Right.
we feed the thoughts that we think, and the thoughts that we feed grow, whether or not we want them to or not.
Right.
And so the more I fed that thought of I must not be pretty, or I must have to earn beauty, um, it changed the way that I thought of myself. And I wish I
Right.
could rewind that, right, and understand it more when I was young. But that's the difference between um, maybe a healthy or a helpful pathway and an unhelpful pathway that we sort of create.
Right. That's crazy. So in my previous episode, we talked about, or I talked about how um, all growing up, my parents were on different diets. They would
Mm-hmm.
diet after diet, trying different thing, and they were trying different exercise routines and all these different things. And so in my brain, I was like, oh, I can only eat certain things. I can only
Yeah.
eat certain foods. I can't have this cookie because I had a brownie earlier. Like, just different things like that. So that's I don't that's
You can see that, right?
yeah.
Right. And I think, I mean, our whole life is full of experiences that shape our thoughts. And sometimes we don't, probably a lot of times we don't even recognize it. It's just really subconscious. But every experience we have a belief about. And so it takes a lot of thought work to find those unhelpful beliefs, to find those thoughts that get really stuck, because we know that our thoughts are connected to our actions, our behavior, and it's directly connected to our emotions. Those things form a triangle. You can't take away thoughts without influencing feelings or your actions, right?
Right.
And so neural pathways, and that's why this is so important, this brain health and this thought work and this examining of ourselves, and so that we can catch ourselves when I'm looking in the mirror and I'm saying, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that my hair is thinner, or that I put on 10 pounds, that I'm still seeing I'm somebody of worth. I'm somebody beautiful. I have something to give, and not feeding the thoughts that are entrenched with that unhelpful pathway.
Right. Oh, I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so cool.
So, all right, let's keep talking.
Let's.
Okay, so this is what I've been thinking about. Are we always creating new pathways? What do you think?
Well, just from based on what we've talked about, I think yes.
Yeah.
Because we have different experiences
Yeah.
in our lives, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, we're always creating new pathways. And like I said, we're able to rewire pathways. So, think of this example. This is kind of goofy, but it's it's not as sad as talking about somebody like a human. If you think of a rescue dog, if you go into a shelter and you get a rescue dog who's been abused for a really, really long time or really neglected, you bring him home, your house is full of love, it's a safe place, you're trustworthy. You're bringing home a dog whose experiences have shaped their thoughts, their actions, their feelings, right? And so they may be really low energy, really unpleasant, really distrustful of you, keeping a distance, all of those things. It takes what? It takes time, it takes patience, it takes a lot of baby steps to kind of help teach the dog to trust that this is a safe place. our brains can do the same. Our brains can be rewired to kind of back out of the unhelpful pathways and kind of form a different highway, so that when those signals from your brain to the rest of your body happen, they're not impulsive or they're not at a reaction. They're thoughtful. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I read once that our brain has something like 100 billion neurons. 100,
That's so
100
many.
billion neurons. It's so much.
Oh my
right?
goodness.
And it's an indication of how powerful our brain is.
Yeah.
But it would be silly to think that everything that comes from our powerful brain is true, right? We know that not everything that comes from our brain is true. And so it really is a blessing and a miracle that we can kind of rewire, that we can change paths, that we can accept the call to go on a different route. If I can use your little name.
Yes.
So we can do things that help strengthen healthy pathways. There's lots of things that we can do. There's lots of things that we do every day, just every day. So some of those things, like if we get up and move our body and exercise, we're actually creating an atmosphere to create neural pathways that are on a healthy place. So moving our body and getting up, using all of our five senses. So mindfulness, grounding, being out in nature, all of those things, being really mindful of here's what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm experiencing. Those things are really great. Learning something new. So learning a new language is a huge one. Traveling is something huge. Doing or learning anything different is a way to help create an atmosphere for neural pathways to be created. You can actually, this is really cool. There's growing evidence about what sunshine can do. So we know that sunshine is healing, right? It's not just nice to feel through the window pane or to walk outside in the sunshine. It's actually healing. It's one of the ways that our body can create or strengthen a neural pathway. And if you take a look at maybe what we think about God or Christ and turning to the light, turning to the Son of God, I don't think that's a coincidence. So getting out in the sunshine, it's why some people get more depressed in the winter, right? Because our bodies literally needs that sunshine and our brains do. So, that's my train of thought. Those are some of the ways that we can retrain our brain or rewire them through those things. It's also about what we consciously and consistently and repeatedly think and do. So all those other things kind of create maybe an atmosphere or create a culture of this that can thrive. But a lot of neural pathways get so entrenched when they're repeated actions, repeated thoughts, and all those things. So let's think of an example. Do you have an example that you can think of in your life?
I feel like I have many. I feel like just as you were talking, the thing that I kept thinking of is when I got home from my mission, I was very angry with God. Yeah. Like, he sent me on a mission, and then because I was never planning to go on a mission, and then I did because he told me to. So I went, and then he sent me home. Right. And I was like, you told me to go, like, and so then I stopped going to church. I stopped reading my scriptures. I stopped praying. I stopped doing all those things that were creating healthy pathways in my brain and my body that helped me not only connect to like my spirit, but it just helped me feel good as a human being when I was doing those things. And I stopped doing it when I got home. And then one day I was like, why am I not? I was talking with someone, and she was like, the reason you're not, like, you feel like you have no purpose, and the reason you feel like you're not going anywhere is because you're not connecting with God. You're not reading your scriptures. You're not journaling. You're not praying. You're not exercising when you wake up in the morning. You're not taking that time for yourself just to connect with your inner self. Right. And so then when I started doing those things, I started to see a difference in just my day-to-day life as I was making the time to pray and connect with not only my body but my spirit as well. Like, I felt so much better. Right. And when I started going to church again, I started like being involved. I got better connections with my family again, and I didn't feel as disconnected from, I mean, not only myself, but I just felt more connected with God and with my family and with
So,
everything around me.
I mean, that's such a perfect example. What do you think would have happened if you had continued feeding the anger, if you'd continued feeding the thoughts of, am I not worthy to go on a mission, or am I not, like, can I not make my own decisions like how I thought you would? Like, what would happen, or where would you see yourself if those are the things that you continue to feed, and those pathways you continue to entrench?
I would not be doing this podcast.
Right.
That's for sure, if I just kept on the path that I was on. And I just do not think that I would be as happy as I am. But I don't know, when I started that positivity back into my life, because I mean, I feel like it looks different for everyone, like different things that everybody does to
Sure.
feel connected to themselves and to God or the universe or whatever they believe in. Like there's
Right.
different things, and so that's what I chose to do and chose to believe in, and it helped me a lot. And I feel like if I didn't feed my mind with those positive things and those positive outlooks, I would
You'd be on a different course.
I'd be on a
You'd
different
be on a
course, and
different
I feel like
course.
it'd be a dark one. That is not
Right.
not where I would want to be.
Right.
So
What an awesome thing. I think next time I would actually think we should dive into how this affects our daily life. Like just on the everyday thing. It's important to understand the big picture of neural pathways, but it affects the smallest things that we do in life.
right. Thank you so much for educating us today.
Oh, sure. Like I'm not a doctor, but I'm happy to share what I know.
Yes. We will have another episode to dive even deeper, like Cassie said, just talking about how it affects our day-to-day lives and different things like that.
I'm excited.
You for joining us, and
Thanks
we'll
so
see you
much.
on the next episode.
Sounds good.
Bye. Thank you, team, for joining me today. Remember to look for opportunities where you can grow and change. You are loved, you are valued, and you belong.